Shawn, many thanks for your time this morning. We've just heard from some other emergency services now that there was an increase in trauma cases after the curfew was lifted. What was your experience in this particular festive season?
Good morning. Well, most definitely. If I look at the number of incidences we attended to as South Africans were welcoming the new year, are pretty much the same compared to what we saw in 2019, 2020. However, there has been an above average number of trauma-related incidences compared to this time last year. If we look at the roads alone, emergency services attended to a multitude of motor vehicle collisions, which involved both heavy and light motor vehicles, which in all fairness was expected. The number of pedestrian vehicle collisions that emergency personnel have attended to has shown an increase year on year, with most sadly being proved fatal. And the unfortunate but ever increasing number of violent attacks on people, such as shootings, stabbings, and assaults with the intent to severely injure, if not kill, noticeably increased when alcohol was consumed.
And I'm glad you bring up the issue of alcohol, because I assume that it's at the center of a lot of the accidents and the violent actions between people that we would have seen in the period.
Correct, yes, particularly personal related injuries when it does come to violence. We find a lot around shebeens, those kind of areas where people do drink, they get happy, and I think, things just get a little bit out of hand, and then people end up killing themselves or severely injuring themselves.
No, absolutely. What about resources? Shawn, have you found that as the Netcare team, you've been able to sufficiently deal with all the calls that you'd be getting to go out to various destinations?
We have. Fortunately, our National Emergency Operations Center has some of the latest technology. We use technology called heat mapping. So what would happen in an instance if we can find there's an increased number of calls coming from a certain area, we'll take resources from a rather quiet area or an area where nothing's happening, and we'll transfer them through to those hot zones, if that's what I can call it, to deal with those cases over there. And so it can move. If we find another place has been we're getting inundated with calls, we can transfer those ambulances and response vehicles there to those areas.
What about protection and safety for the members of your team, Shawn? There have been reports throughout the year 2021 that emergency personnel were being mistreated when they would go to various locations. What is an update on that in terms of the working environment that you guys are exposed to?
Unfortunately, that does happen. Our guys a lot of the guys do understand the areas that they work in. And, if we go into certain areas such as parts of Cape Town, KwaZulu-Natal, even Johannesburg, the guys will go and wait for a police vehicle at a police station, wait for an escort to go into those areas just to avoid robbery or even personal injury.
Right. Let's speak about another big issue. We've spoken about the curfew restrictions being lifted, but there's also the pandemic that still exists. Just in terms of the fourth wave and the trends that you guys are seeing, how severe are the cases that you are getting that are related to the Omicron variant, if severe at all?
Well, we are seeing an increase in COVID-related cases, which would be expected. Fortunately, from the results that we've seen, there hasn't been that the same amount of fatalities as we've experienced in previous phases of the COVID vaccine. Definitely, the Omicron version is more infectious, but fortunately, the amount of deaths and severe illness that we are seeing from it isn't as bad as what we saw in previous years.
Right. And then just a final thought from you, Shawn. Over the next few days, people are going to be coming through from various provinces as they prepare to return to work and school. What do you guys usually see in terms of road accidents and you guys getting emergency calls to these various N3 or N1 or the big national roads, rather, where all of this influx of traveling will be happening?
A lot of the cases that we do take from about, generally from about the 3rd all the way through till about the 5th, 6th, 7th A lot of heavy motor vehicles been involved in collisions. Out of this, public transport, taxis will always be an issue. And buses, buses transporting people between provinces, that's sadly a reality.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Shawn. Shawn Herbst there from Netcare.